We check in on the Sunshine State, where elections are underway to replace National Security Advisor Michael Waltz and myself in the United States House of Representatives. One of those races is really heating up, and a supporter of Democrat candidate Josh Weil has been arrested by the Flagler County Sheriff. Republican Randy Fine has accused his Democrat opponent Josh Weil of being closely associated with criminals and those who embrace violence. The attacks have grown personal, with Senator Fine sharply criticizing his opponent for converting to Islam after 9/11. Senator Fine has called Weil a dangerous man. Senator Randy Fine is an outspoken advocate for the U.S.-Israel relationship as a Florida lawmaker, and he joins us now. Senator, are there two people on the planet Earth more different than you and your Democrat opponent in this race for Congress? It seems like quite the portrayal of opposites.
Well, look, everyone knows I'm a pretty conservative Jewish guy. I fight for Israel and against anti-Semitism. And I'm running against a guy who, after 9/11, thought converting to radical Islam was a good idea. So, it's as different as it could be.
Yeah, what was the news that we've seen emerge regarding your opponent's potential connection with somebody who had a little run-in with law enforcement?
Well, more than that. So you'll remember, knocking on doors can be a lot of work. And this guy's paying people to do it, $25 an hour. Well, apparently one of them got tired of going door to door, so went into a garage and stole a bike. Everyone's got Ring cameras now, so the person called the cops. The cops tracked the person down and arrested them. They admitted they were doing it, and they admitted they were working for my Democrat opponent. The problem was, this person that they had hired has been arrested 19 previous times and has been convicted of 3 felonies, including felony gun possession. So the Democrats are literally sending convicted felons into people's neighborhoods to stalk their homes. It's insanity.
Yeah, was MS-13 not available for like a canvassing experience? And so they got this guy instead. And if your opponent got elected to the United States Congress, the cheapest thing that you'd give away is the bike that was stolen by his campaign worker, because it seems a lot like a lot of the policies your opponent supports would leave people in far worse economic situation.
Well, he may employ MS-13. There's 149 other people that are working. And interestingly, when this guy got caught, they didn't fire the door knocking firm. So who knows what other felons are working in there. But yeah, look, this guy's a hardcore socialist who is very clear. He believes in taking over the U.S. economy, stopping the Trump agenda, going back to the way things are, wants to pay 300-year-old Social Security. And it's a fundamental fork in the road that people have to decide is, do we want to continue the Trump agenda moving forward, building on all the momentum that we have right now, or do we want to go back to Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and even worse as it relates to this guy?
You call him Jihad Josh, and you've called your opponent dangerous. What's your best evidence for the claim that he's dangerous?
Well, he's a teacher, and while teaching, he picked up one of his students, slammed him to the ground, and hurt his head, and actually got suspended for doing it and admitted that he did it. Things just got out of hand. He also assaulted a female teacher, went and poked her physically in the school. And just last year was arrested in my own county after driving recklessly. We've got a great mugshot of the guy. So the idea of criminality is not uncommon with this guy. He is a violent guy and became violent after he converted to radical Islam.
So if you were in Congress now, if you were seated in the House of Representatives, how would you be thinking about this continuing resolution and government funding battle that's going on right now?
Well, look, I think you've got to support the team captain. And the team captain right now is President Trump. And what we have to do is make sure that he is successful in getting his agenda done. Because if we fight amongst ourselves, everything will fall apart. You know this better than most, Matt. There was a time when the Florida supermajority was only 1 in the Florida legislature. It's now an overwhelming majority. And it's because we put points on the board every 2 years. Our goal needs to be to show that we can govern and grow that 5-person majority to 10 and 15 and 20 and 25. And I think that's all possible if we work together.
In the Florida legislature, we actually do single subject spending bills. There's the debate time where we talk about the transportation budget or the healthcare budget or the criminal justice budget. Do you see that as a preferable way to go about drafting a spending proposal when compared to continuing resolutions or omnibus bills?
Absolutely. And look, I think a lot of what we do in Florida, we should try to bring to Washington. Single subject bills, the way that when we pass a bill, you get an underline and a strike through so you can see exactly what it is that you're changing in the law. It's easy. It's much easier to look at. You know, when you make things too complicated, people can't figure out what's going on. And so they don't actually know what they're voting for. And so we need to get back to zero-based budgeting, people thinking through what every department spends. The reason Elon Musk is finding all this waste is because no one's bothered to look for decades. That happens when you do zero-based budgeting.
That's exactly right. Zero-based budgeting is, for those not unfamiliar with the term, you don't start with the expectation that you will get exactly what you got last year to do exactly the same thing. You start with the expectation that you have to defend every single dollar. And then lawmakers can see what is efficacious and what is not. And you're exactly right. That hasn't happened in Washington. Senator Fine, if you get to Congress, what will be your plan to attack the out-of-control spending?
Well, it'll be talking about things in terms of my children. That's part of the reason I'm doing this. My sons are 13 and 16 years old. And I'll tell you, you can borrow $2 trillion a year until you can't. Right. It's going to be a sudden crash. And I know that that crash will happen in my children's lives if we don't do something about it. And what I'm going to be asking my colleagues to think about is, don't think about yourselves. Worry about how you will be judged by your children if you don't solve this problem, because our kids don't care whether we win or lose elections. They want to judge us for doing the right thing. And I think a lot of the politicians, if they think about it through the eyes of their children, they're going to realize they're letting them down. And so that is my focus. I worry about how Jacob and David will judge me when I'm done doing this job. And I'm not going to leave until that budget is under control. It's the single thing I'm most worried about.
Yeah, likewise. So I also want to ask you how the campaign trail is going. We got news recently that the Republican campaign chief was advising members of Congress to not hold in-person town halls. It seemed like a lot of paid protesters and rabble-rousers were being assembled for those. What's been your experience on the campaign trail? Have you been having events? What kind of folks have been showing up?
Well, we are. I don't advertise my stuff super far in advance. And frankly, I'm the only member of the Florida legislature who has 2 people sitting in jail right now for making death threats against them. So I have certain security protocols that I have to use. But I will tell you, when you see these, for example, this person who just got arrested, this felon, they're not from the district. These are people that are getting bussed in from all over the country. And I will tell you that they're making phone calls from as far away as Fairbanks, Alaska, to try to make phone calls into this district. I didn't even know there were Democrats in Fairbanks, Alaska. So we are seeing people from all over the country try to get in and meddle in the middle of an election that just affects Florida. And it's absolutely happening.
Well, we certainly wish you a safe passage on the trail, and it sucks when your family has to deal with those threats, and I'm glad law enforcement got involved in that case. Just a final question for you, Senator. I know you watch the Middle East very closely. We've got this ceasefire that's hanging by a thread. What's your expectation for how that's going to play out?
It's ultimately not going to play out well because Hamas can't give all the hostages back because that's the only leverage that they have. So ultimately, we're going to have to take action in order to clean this stuff out. Look, they have a culture that's been decades in the making of lionizing death and destruction. And it's hard to live next to people who just want to kill you all day.
State Senator Randy Fine, quite possible the next time we speak to you on the program, you'll be Congressman Randy Fine. Stay safe on the trail, my friend.
Thanks, buddy.